In this next portion for the review unit, we're going to be looking at linear functions. So you're going to be forming a straight line on a graph. I'm going to bump this question up and we're going to take a look at 5b, just because there's more to the equation to take a look at. So I'm going to blow that up a bit. What we want to use is a table of values and then graph that. So on the side here, I'm going to set up a table of values. So I'm going to have some x coordinates and some y coordinates. What you are doing, you are picking your x values. Okay, so you can pick any number. I'm going to pick some negative values. I'm going to pick a 0 for sure, and then I'm going to pick some positive values to see where my line goes. So I'll start off with -4. I'll skip, so I'll go to -2. I'll take a look at 0. I'll take a look at 2, and I'll take a look at 4. In your next step, what you would do on scrap paper, your calculator or mental math, you're going to substitute these values of x into the equation everywhere that you see an x value. So on the side here, I'm just going to show it, but if I have y is equal to, I have -2x, which means to multiply, so I'm going to substitute in -4. I'm going to add 3. Continuing to get my y answer, -2 times -4 is going to be a +8. And then 8 plus 3, you're going to get 11. So I go back to your data table and I put the answer of 11 in there. You're going to continue this. I'll show for one more point, but the next one I'm going to plug in -2. So then I have y is equal to, it'll be -2 times -2, adding the 3 onto here. I have y is equal to, it'll be 4 plus 3, and your final solution for that would be a 7. So I go back to your table of values and I place the answer of 7 there. The remaining answers are going to be 3, -1, and -5. So you would finish off that table and this is what you would graph. Going to your actual graph paper now, your x-axis is the horizontal axis, the y is the vertical. So now when I go to the graph, I'm looking where x is equal to -4 and where y is equal to 11. I'm going to show it with the green pen with a dashed line, but I'll graph everything using red. So if I go to where -4 is and I kind of keep going up, you're going to notice that 11 is off the page. So you're going to notice here, here's where 10 is. It would be off the page, so I can't graph that. When I go to the next point of -2, I want to find out where it meets up with 7. So if I go where y is 7, I'm going to place my point on my graph. And you're going to continue working through your table of values by placing them. So then I would place 0 and 3 onto your graph. That's right on the y-axis. I place 2 and -1 on your graph. And I would place 4 and -5. Now with a straight edge, you're just going to connect these points, but continue your line to the edge of your graph paper because linear relations can continue going on. It's not just a little line segment that stops. So that's how you would graph using a table of values. So you pick the x coordinates. We're going to quickly try one more on the next page. On this next page, let's take a look at one of the harder ones. So let's take a look at C. Okay, so I'm going to blow that up a tad. I'm going to pick my numbers once again. So here's my table of values for x and y. Because I have a fraction in my equation, and you're going to notice that the x value is being divided by a 2. Or we can say it's being divided by -2. In this situation, I want to find numbers. If I'm picking x values, I want to pick numbers that can be divided by 2 to make my answers whole numbers. Okay, I don't want to have fractions on my graph. So I'm going to pick on here, I'll start off with, I'll pick -4 because I want to pick some negative values. I'll skip, so -2. I'll do 0 because 0 would be okay, a 2, and I'll take a look at 4 and see where my graph goes. By substituting these in, I'm only going to do 1. If I take -4 and plug that into the equation, I'll show the work on the side. Watch your signs. I have an overall negative sign here, but if I substitute in -4, and this is all being divided by 2, and then adding the 2 at the end, watch out for your signs, because on here, a -4 divided by a +2 is a -2. But if I take a look at this, 2 negatives become a positive. So then my answer over here becomes 2, and I'm adding that other 2, and your answer is going to be 4. So I go down to your data table, or your table of values, and place the answer. And you're going to work your way down. So the rest of the answers is going to end up being 3, 2, 1, and 0. I'm going to graph these. So you want to graph like 4 or 5 points to show where your graph is going. You don't want to just graph 2 points. So on here, I'm going to find out what -4 meets up with a +4. So I place my point. I'm going to find where -2 matches up with a +3. 0 matches up with 2. 2 matches up with 1. And 4 matches up with 0. And I'm going to take my straight edge and connect these. But I'm going to make sure that I connect past the points that I'm given, because a linear relation can continue going on. So now you're going to try the rest of the examples in question number 5. Next, we're going to take a look at question number 6. In question number 6, what our goal is we're going to eventually start taking a look at a graph that's already been done for us, and we want to eventually find out what the equation is and go between the two. Either given the equation and graph it, or what you want to do is have the graph and get the equation. So you want to work between the two. So we're going to start off by looking at what slope is, and you should have seen this last year to some degree. We are just going to look at counting slope. Okay, so in the end, you're looking at rise over run. So slope is how high something is rising or how low it's going down. So slope is rise over run. And what these stand for, rise, if you're looking going up or going down, that's the y-axis. And if you're looking at the run, it's going from left to right on here. So you're looking at an x-axis on here. When I look at this first graph in question number 6, so I'm going to blow this up a bit. It says draw a line through the point for the given slope. So what I'm trying to do is apply the slope of 2/5 onto this graph. When your slopes are positive, so I'm just going to shift this to the side, but when your slopes are positive, your line will go up. Okay, so this is with a positive slope. If your line is going down, it's going to have a negative slope. And then if you have just a flat line, that means your slope is going to be 0. We're not going to worry about undefined slopes at this point in time, because we're just going to be reviewing grade 9 stuff. So when I look at the slope, since it's positive, that means we're going up. When I look at the slope, this means we want to move up 2 points, and we always move to the right. Okay, we don't go to the left. Whenever we look at a slope, if it's negative, that means we would go down. Okay, when you're counting in terms of the slope, you always move to the right. Okay, so the signs of your slope will always tell you if you're going up or down only. Now you're going to notice that on this piece of graph paper, there's a point already started. I'm going to show this in blue, but I will do my graph in red, just so I can show you my counting. So if I'm going up 2 units, I'm going to go up, here's 1, here's 2, and then I want to go to the right 5 units. So that would be 1 unit, 2 units, 3, 4, 5. Then what you do is you're putting your new point. It's like saying, where did it move to? Now what you're going to do is take your straight edge and connect those two, and that will form your line. So now we have drawn a line through this point with that given slope. I'm going to shift this over, and we're going to take a look at part B, because part B is a negative slope. So I'm going to shift this over. In part B, you're going to notice that it's a -4. The sign attaches to that top number. Going from where your point is originally listed on your graph paper, I'm going to go down 4 units. So this would be 1 unit, 2, 3, 4. So that's 4 units. Then when I look at the run, it's 7, and you always move to the right. So if I go 7 to the right, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And I'm going to place a new dot in that place, and I'm going to connect this with my straight edge. So what you are doing in here is you're graphing your new point from applying your slope and then drawing your line. That's how you would do all of number 6. In question number 7, instead of them starting off with a point, they're going to give us the coordinates of 2 points. So if we take a look at question number 7, we'll do 2 of them. So I'm just going to blow this up. It says for you to graph a line through the given pair of points, and then our goal in the end is to find the slope. We're going to count the slope instead of using the slope formula. So I'm going to blow that up just a tad bit more. So on here, actually I'll go even bigger for this one question, I'm going to plot these 2 points. So the first point I'm going to plot is at 1 and 5. So you find out where whenever you're looking at coordinate points, X is first, Y is second. So on the X-axis, I find out where it's 1. On the Y-axis, I locate where 5 is, and then I put my point on my graph. The second one is sitting at 4 and -2, so I would plot that point as well, and I will connect this with a straight edge. So we've drawn our line, we've graphed it, but now what it wants you to do is to find the slope. We always read on the graph from left to right. So if I go from left to right, I've touched this point first, and I'm going to end up at this point second. So they're saying, how do you count for your slope? So remember that slope is rise over run. This is the change in Y over the change in X. So if I take a look at this, from left to right, your line is going down. So I'm going to use the blue marker to show the counting. So this is 1 unit, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 units down. So when you're looking at your slope on here, 7 units down is a -7. And if I find out how many places I went to the right, that would end up being 1, 2, 3 units to the right. So then my slope for this line is -7 over 3. If you ever get a slope that can be reduced, make sure you reduce it into lowest form if possible. Okay, so I'm going to shift this over and we're going to take a look at part B. So we'll do one more. Your first step on here is to plot your points. So my first point is sitting at 2 and -1. And the other point is sitting at -5 and -3. What you want to do is connect those with a straight edge. That's the first step. So that part's done. It's going to be graphing your line. Now the second step on here is to calculate the slope. So I want you to recall that we always go from left to right. So it means we are starting with this point on the far left, and I want to end up with the point number 2 that's on the right there. So I'm going to count. Notice how your line is moving up between those 2 points. So if I count, I am going up 1 unit, 2 units. So when I'm calculating slope on here, it's going to be equal to a +2. And then if I look at the run, I'm going over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So this one's a +2 over 7 for a slope. It can't be reduced, so we leave that there. So I'll let you do the rest of question number 7 to calculate everything and to calculate your slope. And the last question to take a look at is question number 8. This one, the line has already been drawn for you, and they want you to find the slope of each line. You're going to notice that points are already on there. Okay, so we know where we are counting in between. So we're just using the counting method at this point in time. So if I take a look at this one, that means from left to right on a graph, I have this point that I'm touching first, this point I'm touching second. So then if I'm counting, recalling back at the previous question, that slope is the rise over the run. That means that is a change in y over your change in x. So if I take a look at this one, my line is going down. So I'm going down 1 unit, 2 units, 3 units. So that would be a -3. And then if I count going over to the right, since we always go to the right, it's 1, 2 units. This cannot be reduced, so that would be your final answer. If I take a look at part B, going between here, looking from left to right, my first point is sitting at number 1. My second point from left to right is number 2. So if I count this, notice that your line is going down. So I'd be going down 1 unit, 2 units. So then on here, my slope would be a -2. And if I go to the right, I'm counting 1 unit, 2 units. This fraction can be simplified because -2 divided by a +2 is an overall -1. So wherever you can simplify a slope, make sure you do so. So either reduce it or divide it if it gives you a nice whole number. Okay, so I'll let you try the rest of question number 8. The last thing to take a look at is you're going to notice on letter O, they don't give the graph, they only give the equation. So let's finish off with that one, and that will end the lesson off. So let's take a look at letter O. Okay, so on letter O, notice that we have just an equation. There's no graph paper. We don't know what's here, okay? So when I look at this, you should have taken a look at this last year, and you might recall that the equation in slope-intercept form is y is equal to, and the formula is mx plus b. When you're looking at this equation, the number that touches the variable x, this is the slope. So when I look through all of these equations, any value, the coefficient that's touching that x value is going to be your slope. And then the constant at the end, so it's a number, it could be positive or negative, this is your y-intercept. And we're going to be looking at this in great detail this year. So if I take a look at the first question on here, letter O, I want to look at what is touching the x value. So in this case, -2 is. So this part of the question is going to go very fast. So the slope in here is -2. If I look at letter P, anything that touches the x here, that is the slope. So on here, my slope is going to be 1/4. Okay, letter Q. If I look in front, I don't see a number in front, but when no numbers are in front and it exists, it actually has a coefficient of 1. So in this situation, my slope will be equal to 1. Okay, so I'll let you finish the rest of it off. Okay, so make sure that you're looking at counting slopes for this review. Okay, taking your time with every question, especially when it comes to graphing or using a table of values. So you want to make sure that you're practicing all these.